Hey everyone, Nathan Nerdarchy here from Nerdarchy for Nerds by Nerds, and today I have
Dave.
And I'm Ted.
We're going to be talking about cursed magic items.
So we got a request from Mike McLeroy. He wanted to know what's our viewpoint on cursed magic items.
Well,
I like them.
in our games, they've come up.
Yes.
Actually, recently, Ted's trying to murder one of my characters with a cursed dagger right now.
Yeah, well, you're murdering people. Oh, allegedly murdering people.
Yeah, allegedly.
With cursed daggers.
So
I didn't see it. So.
There's lots of things that can be done with cursed magic items. As they're saying, I've put one in the game, and I put it out there. I was like, okay, well, if you're doing this thing here, you can use the magic item and see what happens. And it wound up taking over Dave's character and having him go murder people.
It's like powerful medicine with side effects. It's not really a curse.
Well, and it's funny too because there's different levels of cursed magic items as well. There's the demon full plate armor and the DMG, which is really sweet, except for the fact that you can't take it off, and there's something about demons in there.
You can't take it off, and you get disadvantage on attacking demons.
Yeah. So you guys, it wants you to be boys with them essentially. But there, going way back to like our first campaign, there was like 2 items that were kind of cursed.
Okay.
So there was the evil white Satan book. That wasn't cursed. It's just every time you read from it, you would have to roll to see what happened to your character, and sometimes it was good, and sometimes it was bad.
Yeah, it was like a deck of many things in a book. It's the best way I could.
And then now, my gnome character actually ended up getting. I don't forget what the magic item was.
Was it the eye?
Was it an eye?
Didn't you have like some kind of fiery eye that you like put inside your skull?
I think so, and it was definitely affecting. It was turning him evil,
right?
Which was problematic.
Before or after you put it in your skull? And were you missing an eye at the time?
I was not missing an eye at the time.
Okay.
So
warning sign number 1.
It was a powerful magic item, possibly an artifact, and there was definitely some ill effects to using it. Like, I was becoming a dark shadow mancer.
Right. But you were a druid, right?
No, it was a gnome illusion.
Gnome illusion. Okay.
And it was definitely influencing my character and turning him evil, which was really bad in that campaign because you had the most goody of goody.
I was the super lawful good cleric.
Nearly a paladin. Paladins are like, damn, that guy's a dick. He's such a Boy Scout. So there's like some examples, but then you have your straight up cursed magic items, like the Bag of Devouring,
right?
Which I still want to turn into an intelligent magic item.
Or is there a Ring of Drowning, where instead of water breathing, you think it is, or you want to just jump in the water?
I don't know if that's in 5e or not, but there was definitely one of those. The Spear of Backbiting, I always remember that. That's always nice when you attack someone else, it attacks you. There was always the Berserker Sword, where it works great while you're using it in combat, and you fly into a Berserker Rage, and I'm pretty sure they brought that one back. The only problem is you can't stop trying to kill things. You have to make saving throws
to stop.
And if someone ticks you off, then there's a chance you just start killing things.
So lovely.
So these things can be problematic. I personally, I don't put them in my game very often.
I put the dagger out there just to see what would happen. And I really expected it to stay with Ryan. And he's like, well, I'm not going to use it. And I'm like, well, all right, it's sitting there doing nothing. So let's begin, he's had it for months now. Let's have it do some subtle manipulation and see what happens. And I was letting role-playing happen. And he's like, all right, it's not letting me sleep well at night. I'm kind of tired. Let's see what we can do to just destroy this thing. And since it's cursed, I'm like, all right, this thing is not going to just go away nice and easy, because that just be too easy for you guys. So I threw, he took it to you to be like, all right, let me just try and break it, and I'm going to stick it in fire and have clerics bless it and this and that. And it didn't work.
Gosh darn it, I told those clerics 10 days. We have to bless it for 10 days and 10 nights. But no, they're like, we can try it for one night.
Can we just do this for 5 hours?
Yeah, short-sighted humans.
So I wound up saying, all right, well, since Dave's manipulating it, throughout all of this whole smithing process and this and that, let's see what he does with it. Dave's not a dagger fighter. He's going to pull out his axe. He'll hold on to it for a while, and then in a handful of sessions, he'll wind up having to go through what Ryan went through. But short of that, that session, he just decides, what, I'm going to pull this out and use it because I don't have a weapon on me. And then he decides to actually activate the powers on it, and then fellow will save.
Well, in all fairness, I couldn't get rid of it anyway. It kept coming back to me, and we were going to a nobles party. What am I going to bring an axe for? It doesn't make any sense.
But you had spells.
You can't just use
spells. He's not that kind of dwarf.
You can't solve all your problems with spells.
But you're a wizard.
I'm a second-level wizard.
And only a first-level fighter.
With a magic dagger that likes him.
Yeah, with a magic dagger that explodes people.
Yeah.
So, now we just get to deal with the consequences of that session.
So the way Ted does cursed magic items is he has you murder civilians.
Well, with this particular dagger, like I said, I wasn't expecting.
It was a dagger that wanted blood.
It got it. It got lots.
Straight up murder two people.
I like quirk magic items. I'm glad they put it in the randomly rolling table in the DMG, like quirks. The hammer, which is actually a sword that does blunt damage, makes the sound of a gong when you strike things. Boom. So that's kind of.
But those quirks aren't in there. You made that up, right?
No, the gong quirk is there. The doing blunt damage isn't.
Yeah.
So the gong is there. Or what if you just break out in hives when you put it on or take it off? Like some kind of weird magic allergy. I mean, that actually make people. Well, if I got that in Ted's game, I'd be scared to death that something bad was going to happen after the last cursed magic item. But I think I like lower level cursed magic items because they could always seriously develop into something else.
You mean more like annoyances?
Annoyances or stuff that would get you worried and question whether or not you should use something, or is this influencing my actions as well as it
over the many
makes
years
me more angry or annoyed.
Over the many years of me actually running, I haven't used a whole lot of cursed magic items. Usually I'm throwing stuff out there. It's like, okay, you find a magic item, it's a reward. I want to reward the players for having survived for this long. I want their characters to develop and give them cool and interesting things that are geared for what they want. I've actually got a couple players who have specifically said, hey, I've got this character goal, and the only way for it to really happen is through a magic item. Is it possible? And I'm like, yeah, I can put that together without a problem. But if you put out, something for the players to deal with, especially early on, it can become a role-playing challenge as well as an aid, depending upon what they do with it. Now, having Dave did what he did last session, it's definitely twisting and turning my material in certain ways because I have to deal with what he did and what he wants to do. And at the same time, it's like, okay, well, when is that situation going to come up again? When do they have to deal with a dagger? If you guys are watching our gameplay videos, the dagger disappeared, after he killed the second person. It seemed sated, and then it vanished. So it might show up at the beginning of the next session. It might not show up for another several sessions or anywhere in between. Is it going to choose a new person in the party? Is it going to go back to Ryan? Is it going to go back to Dave? Nobody knows. So depending upon, how I've built this item and depending upon what I as a DM want to do, it's out there to decide. I don't plan to put cursed magic items to make Dave retire this character because he's killed somebody. But he's decided, you know what? I killed somebody. My character fully knows it. I'm going to turn myself in. So we have to deal with that. Now, how other people want to deal with it, that's a whole other, ball of wax. You and I were in a campaign that the cursed item was central to the plot line, very similar to the Lord of the Rings, where they're trying to destroy it. And those type of things make for interesting games because the sword's getting passed around and passed around and passed around. because nobody wants to touch it until it finds that somebody's like, oh, I actually like this thing.
Hot potato. And I feel like, if you're going to use cursed items in your game, then it's important to make it integral to the plot. Mm-hmm. In some way or shape. It's gonna affect your game. Like if you give something to a player and it's affecting them in a adverse way, and they can't get rid of it, then you know what? That's going to be like one of their primary goals is to get rid of it. So just know, whatever you planned on, your player, they're not going to care about it. They're going to want to fix whatever the curse is.
Yeah.
If they were a dude and now they got boobs, they're going to probably want to figure out how to try and change themselves back.
Yep.
Unless they decide they really like it. Then, whatever. Things carry on. Yeah. If you give them armor that they can't take off, they might want to take it off. So they're going to start questing and figuring out how to get rid of it. Or if you got, or even worse, like if you had that sword of the berserker or axe of the berserker, I think it's an axe. Uh-huh. Then the whole party is like, all right, what do we do when he goes berserk? How do we turn him off? It almost becomes like the A-team every time they want to get BA to go on an airplane. You got to knock them out, So you're like, all right, right before the fight is going to end, someone has to sucker punch him.
But what if it sets him off more?
Well, that's the problem. You got to figure out how to turn him off, or either that, or like that character might get murdered by the party in self-defense.
Yeah. For cursed items, especially ones that are detrimental to not only the player but probably some more members of the party, I'd say it's like the half dozen rule. By about a half dozen times of that effect occurring, everybody is sick of it.
Yes.
Yeah. So be prepared. For some crank about it.
So minor curses and that kind of stuff, they're interesting, but people are probably still going to want to get rid of it. Major curses, they need to be something that's integral to the plot, and before you put it into the game, you should really have an idea of what it's actually going to take
to get rid of it. How's it going to go away?
So if the players decide, all right, that this has crossed the line, I'm certain that there's going to be people who are going to feel, oh my God, Uthin Gar has just, turned himself in for committing murder. That's not like him. How do we help him? What do we do? That's gonna spur, possibly an entire session or, multiple things to say, well, how do we fix this
or is there
problem?
going to be an outcry in the town? They're hang that dirty murderer. So basically, the curses are going to fall into two categories: the humorous minor annoyances,
like boots of squeaking.
Yeah, like boots of squeaking. Yeah, or a complete and utter game changer that you're going to have to then figure out. It's going to have to be addressed in the plot line, and you don't want to put something in the game that's going to take the fun out of the game for everybody. Mm-hmm. Like, yeah, you thought it was a great idea to put that that berserker axe in there, but. So what happens when it destroys the whole adventuring party?
Right.
But because maybe that guy murders one or two players, and in the process of himself being taken down and murdered. So now like half your party's dead, and whatever adventure you had planned is totally gone to shit because you have no players.
You've got 3 or 4 players dead.
Yeah, you have no players to go on it. So. When you're using cursed magic items, you really have to consider the consequences, and are you prepared to deal with them in the game?
And get the feedback from your players. Like, if you're watching a table and you see like somebody say, "Hey, this," or you see like the animosity at oh my God, he's raging again, or whatever. Find a way for the problem to be resolved, sooner. When Dave straight up told me, he's like, look, do I have to retire this character now? I'm like, holy crap, this is not something I had anticipated. So I'm like, well, all right, how do I fix this? Because as a DM, I find it's my job to entertain the players. Like, so I don't ever want that to be a situation where a player is ever forced to say, no, I'm not going to do this anymore because this isn't fun.
Well, so that's kind of like the deal. Like, we build the story together.
Yeah.
And, so, like, I was like, man, Ted, you didn't even give me the out of him not knowing what he did. I couldn't have just woken up in some puddle of blood.
See, I felt that it was a role playing thing. Like, for you to have known, yes, I did this. That's going to impact your character, and you totally went with the I'm a good character. I'm gonna totally say I did this.
Well, I felt like I had two choices, right? My character's lawful good, so he's got, in that situation, he's got to either turn to the dark side and decide he liked it, or he has to go, oh man, this is really effed up. I don't do this. This isn't what people do, and so he has to figure out how to make amends.
So I've got ideas for what I want to do. I've got to get a concrete, thought pattern in as to, what the course over the next session or sessions as to what's going on with the dagger. And, I goofed. I didn't put a hardcore, this is what needs to be done to have the dagger destroyed. I know how I'm dealing, or how I would like to deal with, your situation, since you're doing the upright good, citizen thing. But it's definitely gonna, come to a trial, and we'll see, how things actually play out in game. And I think it's gonna be, a really cool role playing scene. We'll see, how the rest of the players.
Guys will have to check out the trial of Uthengar.
But I think cursed items, the major stuff that has the ability to ultimately change a character, to a detriment of a player design. They need to be used sparingly, and but I don't see a problem with using them.
Yeah, I mean, we like you said, we don't use them very often. And there are artifacts that are, they're not actually cursed items, but they might as well be. Black Razor is pretty freaking cool, but the problem is he wants to eat souls every 3 days or so. And if it doesn't get to eat a soul every 3 days,
it might eat yours.
It will eat yours. So, that's almost like a cursed magic item with benefits.
Yeah.
Really good benefits, but still a cursed magic item.
Until
and Ravenloft had an entire book full of cursed magic items. Yeah. So that's something to look into for, I believe, 2nd edition.
Wasn't there certain magic items that actually in Ravenloft became cursed magic items? If you rolled them on the DMG, there was the alternate for it in Ravenloft. I vaguely remember that from the box set.
I feel like there was a mechanic for that. It feels very Ravenloft.
Yeah. If it was a super good magic item, it actually got twisted in Ravenloft to something else.
I think if you brought high level items into it, they could be manipulated by the dark
powers.
The dark powers of Ravenloft.
So why don't you tell us what you feel about cursed magic items, whether they're good for your game or whether they're just, vetoed. Put them down in the comments below. While you're doing that, feel free to hit like, share, and even subscribe.
You guys can follow us and check us out on nerdarchy.com.
You can also join the conversation on Reddit.
So until next time,
stay nerdy.